CloudDB, shaping your new normal.
Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are around the world, and welcome again to the 2021 APEC Groundbreakers Virtual Tour. This year with 144 sessions, over 100 speakers, and 18 days of content. I would like to say thanks to all the user groups and Java user groups, all 16 of them, for making all this possible, and also to our sponsors, Oracle Groundbreakers and CloudDB. Please register to as many sessions as you wish, because all the replays to the sessions you register to, you'll be able to watch until December 30 of this year, and that will tons of content that you're going to have access to until the end of this 2021. To date, we are going to have an amazing session by Christian Shay, SQL and PL development with Visual Studio Code and Oracle Database. That is excellent content, I can tell you, because we here in CloudDB, we use it as Visual Studio. And a lot of the things from there to make the things even better and easier to our development team. And for sure, this will be an amazing session. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask your questions by using the chat window in the right lower corner of your screen. And Christian Shay will be answering all your questions by the end of the session. If you have any issues during the presentation, please feel free to let me know via the same chat, and I will try to help you the best I can. Now, without any more further ado, I'm going to leave you with this amazing session by Christian Shay. Christian, the room is yours.
Okay, great. Well, with an introduction like that, the pressure is on, let me tell you. Thank you for such a nice introduction, and thank you again thank you very much for having me to present at your conference. So yes, as he said, my name is Christian Shay, based out of San Francisco, and I'm the product manager for Oracle's Microsoft tools. So that includes integrated tools for Visual Studio Code and also Visual Studio, which is why you see the little parentheses around code there, because we're trying to mean both Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. So today I'm going to give you a lot of demos, or a couple demos, to show you how to get started developing SQL and PLSQL in those two environments. So without further ado, let me move along here. Okay, so, and before I do that, I think I'm going to turn off my video till the end just to conserve bandwidth. So let me do that. My audio remains. Yes, it does. Okay. So Visual Studio Code, if you weren't already aware, is the most popular development environment today. So there's developers of all stripes using it, from Python to Java and SQL and PLSQL. So it's really amazingly popular. I hear from developers all over the place, and it has a really great ecosystem. So why is Visual Studio Code so popular? Well, first of all, it's free, of course. And the other thing is it's cross-platform. So it supports Linux, Windows, and macOS. And so that just expands the horizons of the types of developers that can use it. And it also covers some platforms where maybe the development environment might be a little sparse. The options might be a little sparse. So since it's such a wide coverage, it just attracts developers of all kinds. And it has really nice features. And once you get to use it, you'll surely agree. But it has debugging support built in, a Git source control built in, wonderful documentation, and it's extremely extensible. So I don't know, I can't remember now, but I think somewhere on the order of 20,000 extensions or something like that. But It supports, it has a ton of extensions out there. So pretty much you name it, you can code in it using these extensions. And so it's just really great. And that's one of the reasons why it is so popular and why so many people want to make it their development environment. And so that means that while they're in there, maybe they want to work on Oracle too, while they're working on their Python, while they're working on their Java, while they're working on their C#. They may want to work on PLSQL or write some SQL scripts. So what about Oracle developers? What about SQL and PLSQL? Well, if you go to the Visual Studio Marketplace and type in Oracle, it's built right into Visual Studio Code. You'll find Oracle Developer Tools for VS Code. So that is our extension. It's free, of course. And that's our extension for Oracle from within Oracle database from within Visual Studio Code. So I will show you how to do that in just a second when we do the demo. So just to reiterate the key points here. And so some of the features before I get into the demo that we have to offer developers. So we have a tree control called Oracle Explorer, and it lets you explore your database as it sounds. And on top of that, for each of the items in the tree control, there's context-sensitive menus specific to that object type. For example, if you're looking at a function, you can run it. If you're looking at a package, you can PLSQL package, you can compile it, things like that. So in any case, we also support lifecycle management of autonomous database. So if you notice in the screenshot here, there's an Oracle Cloud Infrastructure node. So you will be able to create and manage, such as start, stop, terminate, etc., your autonomous databases from Visual Studio Code. And then we allow editing and execution of SQL and PLSQL scripts and ad hoc SQL. And you can format your results in the format of your choice, like CSV format or JSON format. And autocomplete and IntelliSense are great features. These are where you're typing a procedure or a function, and you don't remember the exact function, the exact parameters of the function or procedure. We will prompt you with them. We'll autocomplete the procedure so that you can just fill in the blanks. Same thing true with tables and columns and things like that. Breadcrumb navigation allows you to navigate quickly through large scripts by giving you kind of a collapsible tree of your script. This is a Visual Studio Code feature that extends to our PLSQL script, SQL and PLSQL scripts. SQL history and bookmarks, like it sounds, it keeps a running record of your SQL history and saves whatever code snippets you wish. And we have syntax highlighting and some built-in snippets for beginners as well. And all of this can be found at the Visual Studio Marketplace. So before we get into the demo, I just want to mention the requirements. So you will need to, we do our data access using .NET Core. So you will need to make sure that you have the .NET Core runtime on your machine. This is probably already there if you're a .NET developer, but if you're on Linux or macOS, you may not have it, but we make it very easy. If you don't have it, we just throw up a text box, you click a button, and it takes you to the link that you just need to click, and it'll automatically install. So it's really simple. Usually can get installed within a couple minutes. All right, so let's move on to the demo portion of our Visual Studio Code discussion. So if you take a look here, I have Visual Studio Code right here. I happen to be writing some .NET code, but you could be using Python, Java, or whichever you are interested in. And so the first thing I'll show you is where to get this extension. So if you go to the marketplace here that's built into Visual Studio Code and type in Oracle, you'll see that, let me expand this a little so you can see. You will see that our extension is right here, Oracle Developer Tools for VS Code. And if you look here, it gives you a summary and everything. And I just want to point out a couple of these links here that are important to know. One is we have a quick start that will help you walk through getting started and answer some of the frequently asked questions for new users and for some users who are doing some tricky things. We have a quick start. And then the other one is the Developer Tools Forum. So this is an active community that we have up on the Oracle forums, and we listen very closely to the community, and we prioritize the next set of features based on what we hear from you there. So please do join us on the forums and tell us what you think. Okay, now, once you've installed, or I've already installed it, but once you've installed Oracle Developer Tools for Visual Studio Code, VS Code, you'll notice that a database icon shows up, and I'll just zoom in to show you. And when you click that, you will notice that that our Oracle Explorer is there and our Oracle Cloud Infrastructure node is there. We have a bookmarks section and a history section. Okay, so getting started, you can establish a connection by just clicking the plus sign. And I'm going to connect to I guess my XE, I have a local database. I also have a cloud database. I have two databases I will use today. But let's connect to my XE database, which is local here to my laptop. And if I got the password right, hopefully, yes, I did. You can see that that I have now connected to my XE database. And let me move these things down to give us some room. All right. And moving right along, I'll go start using my cloud database now, just because the demo I want to show has some tables based out of here. So, but in any case, when you look in the Oracle Explorer, you can see that I can view my tables. Let me close the connection dialog. I'll even close that. And so let's take a look at the employees table. See some of the things that we can do to that. So you can see, I can look at the data, I can describe it, I can generate some SQL, but I'm just gonna show the data for the table. And you can see that there's some options here. You can save certain rows. You can download everything. I'm going to fetch everything and save it into a JSON format. So let's see, we'll call it APAC JSON. And so if you're doing some work where you need to get a hold of the JSON data, you can easily do that here. Okay, so let's look at some of the other things that we can look at. We'll look at, we can have some packages here. I have a few that I will use in a moment. Shay demo, I have that. I have a function called names for. Let me open that. So you can open it, which will pull the SQL from the database directly here into the editor. And then when you save it, it goes right back into the database. So this is not exactly a script. It's kind of like editing in the database. That's the best way I can put it. You can certainly save this as a script if you'd like. But right now I've pulled the PL SQL from the database, and I'm now going to update it. So this is, I borrowed this from Steve Feuerstein's excellent blog, and he has an example of calling a function, and it happens to return a ref cursor. So I'm going to add one more case statement here. And as part of that, I will take advantage of this opportunity to show you bookmarks. So earlier today, I saved a snippet of this code here in the bookmarks. So I can just say copy to editor, and it should copy an additional switch here for the depth table, for the departments table. And now I can say save, and it will save it to the database, and then I can run it. So you can use the run command. So we called that depth. And you can see that it provided a return value and it's a ref cursor, so I still need to click the fetch button to get the results. All right, so that is operating directly on the data from within Oracle Explorer. Well, a lot of what you're going to do is going to be script based. So let's look at that. So in order to open a SQL script, the easiest way is to use one of the two menu items you see here. Open new SQL file or open existing SQL file. So why that's nice is it does two things for you. First, it associates this SQL script with our extension, and it also associates it with this active connection. So if you look down here at the bottom of the screen, you can see that in the status, you'll see Oracle SQL and PLSQL. That is our extension. That's our editor. And HR My Always Free High is my connection. You could even change the connection if you wanted by clicking there, but I'm not going to. Okay, so now I am connected because I was connected in Oracle Explorer. I am connected here in this editor. So I can just do a simple query, let's say. And you can see that it is providing autocomplete suggestions as I type. And of course, I mistyped that. So let's fix it. And so I can execute this. And similarly to what we did before, I can save it as JSON. Let's see some other things I could do. I could, I could use what we call IntelliSense, which is where you provide the schema name, you provide the schema name, the table name, and we will give you a very targeted list of column names. So let's say department ID from and it's much easier. I'm doing this for visual purposes, but it's much easier to use the shortcut, which is Control-E or whatever you choose. And then you can also say execute all to execute them all. I'm going to clear the results quickly. And the last thing here is let's do a anonymous block and use one of my packages. Add person. Now I don't remember the parameter names, but this is helpful. It just prompts me for them if I want to enter them this way. The other thing I could do is just start typing. First name. Let's say. Let me delete that. Okay, Dave, comma Smith, and you can see up here. I don't know if it'll show up, but you can see that it is prompting me as I go for the type of the parameter as I type. So, okay, so I'm going to leave that be and move on to the next part. Let's see, what have I not shown? Yes, so suppose that, right now I'm just doing little dinky, little tiny little snippets, right? So what if I have a huge script? So let's open a script. This one is pretty big. It's a couple thousand lines long. How are you supposed to find something that you're looking for inside this long script? It's all this stuff. This is what I use to create my example schema for demos. I've just glued together the HR schema and a bunch of other things that I demo. So how do I find what I want to work on it? Well, there's something called bookmarks. That's not it. Okay, let me go back to demo script. There we go. Okay, let me try again. Close everything. Let's open it again. Let's try again. There we go. There it is. Okay. Fortunately, let me close this folder. Close folder. The C# add-on, I think, is taking over control of that. So let's try again. Okay. There we go. Open existing SQL file. Let me find here. Okay, there it is. Okay, so suppose that, there it is. I was clicking on the wrong spot. That's what I was doing. Okay, so suppose I need to look at, in a very long script, I'm looking for different parts of it. So I'm looking for a particular index, or I'm looking for, let's see if I can do this. I keep doing it wrong. Or looking for my package that I have. Let's see, package body, and I want to go to a particular function. So these are called breadcrumbs. So these help you navigate to a location in a file that is very large. And this file is not large as SQL scripts go, but it's still a couple thousand lines. You surely have some that are tens of thousands of lines long. And so this will be helpful for you. So this is called breadcrumbs. Okay, last thing I'll show you is our Oracle Cloud integration. So if you come over here to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, take a look. So you can see that I've already connected to my cloud account here. If it's very easy to connect. You just click on this. Let me close that. You just click on this little. If the very first time you use it, you click on this little gear, and it'll walk you through 5 minutes steps to get connected to your cloud account. After you do that, you only have to do it once. That's it. And then when you're in here, you can right-click and change the compartment or the region to find your resources. So I have some databases in here, Groundbreakers, another one, my Always Free, which we've been using. And, you can easily create one by just saying create new and filling in the, basically just fill in the name and the username and password. It's pretty easy. So I don't know, let's call it, okay, I put a space in the front. That wasn't good. Hopefully. Oh, it's too long. How about just APAC rules? How about that? All right. Okay, and then can't use an always free account because I've used my limit up, and then provide a password. And what's missing here? I think I didn't type it correctly. There we go. So now you'll see that it's starting up my APAC rules connection. And for my existing database, you can see I have various options: start, stop, terminate. These do what you think. You can change your password. You can go to the Service Console. The most interesting one is probably create connection in Database Explorer. So to show you what that does, I'm going to delete this one here. Okay, and then you can just right-click and say create connection in Database Explorer. It'll offer you to download the wallet. I'm going to skip. I'm not going to download them again. And then you provide, all you have to do is provide the username and the password. And everything else is filled in for you. So if I type the password correctly, it will work. And there you go. You can now begin exploring your database just as we were doing. And that's all done automatically for you. You don't have to think about wallet files. You don't have to think about downloading anything. It downloads the credentials files for you and establishes a connection to the database. Okay, so that's not everything, but that's a good starting point for our Visual Studio Code features. So let's go back to the slides here. And when you do see the slides next, they'll be up there somewhere. There's a couple links here that go to my blog, and I did a walkthrough of various features in Visual Studio Code, kind of like what you saw in this video. And also I did one specifically for Autonomous Database. So if you get a chance, please check out my blog. All right, so now we've covered Visual Studio Code. Let's move along now to Visual Studio. So where Visual Studio Code happens to be multi multi-platform. Visual Studio itself is primarily for Windows. There is a Mac version of it, but it's primarily for Windows developers. It's been around for a very long time. I think our first release on Visual Studio with the extensions was in 2005, but Visual Studio itself has been around, and I'm dating myself, since I was starting out in the 90s. So Visual Studio is a very mature product, and our extension is also very mature because it's been around for, 16 years now. But in any case, so some of the things that you can do with our extension, Oracle Developers Tools for Visual Studio, is you can explore Oracle Database and Oracle Autonomous Database, Lifecycle Management of Autonomous Database. Sound familiar? Well, it's true. The feature comparison between the two extensions is very similar. Now, there are some things that are only in Visual Studio Code, and there's a few things that are only in Visual Studio. So you might notice that if you come from one and try to use the other. Just to be aware, they're not all features are not duplicated across the extensions. But hopefully they will be at some point. All right, so lifecycle management of autonomous database, the create, clone, start, stop. Oracle designers, like graphical designers that help you create tables, store procedures and views using a UI instead of command line. That's an option for you. You don't have to do it that way, of course. PL/SQL editing and debugging. SQL Script editing and script generation. Schema comparison tools, and offline database project with source control integration. Okay, so Oracle Developer Tools for Visual Studio. What are the requirements? Well, it's not what are the requirements, but one of the requirements is it's a free extension. And right now we support Visual Studio 2019 and 2017. It's available on the Visual Studio Marketplace. And it's also on the Oracle website as well. But right now, we do not have a version that works with Visual Studio 2022. Hopefully by the time some of you are watching this video, we do have support for it. But it's coming sometime in 2022, hopefully sooner rather than later. If you're going to try this out, you'll probably have to use 2019 or something. Now, they do have free editions of Visual Studio. Community Edition is very similar or identical to Professional Edition. Pretty much, unless you work for a large corporation, you pretty much can use Visual Studio Community for free. So you can easily try this out without having to pay anything. We tightly integrate with Visual Studio's data features, things like Server Explorer, Table Adapter, Configuration Wizard, and Entity Designer. And we have Oracle-specific features as well. So PL/SQL editing and debugging is a big one. So let's get into the demo part of it again. All right, so since we were talking about how do you get the tools, let me show you that really quick. So over here in extensions, you'll see that there's manage extensions. So you can just go there and type in Oracle. Sound familiar? Oops. And then you can see the product. You can see the product name right here, Oracle Developer Tools for Visual Studio. And if you're using 2019, it'll say 2019. If you're using 2017, it will show you 2017. And if you're using 2022, it won't show up at all. So just fair warning, if you're using 2022, you basically won't be able to try this out. I'm sorry to say. That is until next year, 2022, when we release this for that. Okay, so you would just click the download button and it would give you a zip file that has a V6 in it. You run that and it will install into Visual Studio and you're off to the races. All right, so when we were finishing the demo with Visual Studio Code, we were talking about cloud integration. So let's start there with Visual Studio. So you can see that the first place where you notice our integration with Visual Studio is in Server Explorer. So you can notice the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure node. All right, so if you don't already have an account, you can sign up for one here. You can also add new account entry to add an OCI. You can add your cloud account right here so that you can connect. Now, this is a little involved. It's not too hard, but you will want to click this link here to get instructions on how to set up a configuration file. That will explain it. So I've already connected. And once you've already connected, you'll see that similar to what we had in VS Code, you will have a tree control that contains your autonomous databases that you have. And you'll notice that that Apex Rules database that I created has followed us here. And it looks like it has now connected. There's on both products, there's a scheme we use, which is if the autonomous database is running with no problems, then you won't see a colored ball in front of it. If it's starting up or shutting down, you'll see a yellow ball. In fact, let me just shut this one down here. Stop. And you will notice that it is now turning yellow. Then the red one is stopped, and then the My Always Free instance is started. It has the green badge on it, which indicates that it is an always free instance. And we do that because you're only allowed a small amount of them. And sometimes you want to go and find your always free instances and delete them, and this will alert you which ones they are. Okay, and then similar to what we did before, you can right-click on these, and you can right-click on this, and you can change the compartment, you can change the region, and you can create a new autonomous database. And then we also have, for the various autonomous databases that I have here, we also have a very involved menu here. In fact, there's a few things here that we don't yet have on VS Code, such as clone the database. But you can look at some of the things you can do here. You can start, you can stop, you can look at the service console, terminate the instance, scale up and down, change the credentials. And then the big one, of course, is this create data connection again. So once again, it offers to download the credentials for you automatically. And then you just have to type in the username and password again. I mistyped it. Let me type it again. Hopefully I got it right this time. Yes, I did. Okay, so now I've connected to the cloud here, and I can explore my database instance. Now, some of the things I want to do today are going to be on my XC instance, in particular PLSQL debugging, which you can only do on an on-premise database. You can't do debugging with the cloud right now. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to add a connection, just also to show you a little bit about how this works. And you can see that the data source needs to be Oracle Data Provider for .NET Managed Driver. That will automatically be there if you installed our extension. If not, you can change over to the correct data source. And then I'm going to do my local XE database. So that's just localhost and XEPDB1. And then my username and my password. Test it. That works. All right. So now I have my XC instance here. Okay. And I have some tables, of course. Let's look at a few of these things. We have, as you would expect, we have the ability to open tables and view data. It's a little bit different than what we had on Visual Studio Code, but you can view your data. You can actually change the data in here if you'd like. And when you move to a new row, it will commit it. some other things that are in the Visual Studio Code site are not here, like save to JSON and everything. And then the really interesting thing is the PL/SQL side of things. So I have a package here called OracleMag, and it has some prime number routines. The main routine is called isPrime, which takes in a number and then calculates whether or not it's a prime number or not. If it's not a prime number, it returns 0. If it is, it returns 1. I also have a routine called determine primes, which takes an array of prime numbers and returns an array of ones or zeros, depending on if the array element is a prime number or not. And I think, let's see if I can show you. Let's look at the definition here. You can see that I'm using associative arrays for the two indexes there, so you can just see how this whole thing is set up. Okay, so coming back here, you can see that I'm using the Visual Studio Editor for editing PLSQL. So now this is coming directly out of the database. So if I were to change something here and say compile, it's going to go right into the database. It is not a SQL script per se. So now, what are some of the things we can do here? So let's start by trying to run to this breakpoint here. And I'll say run debug. It asks me for my input value. I will say 13. And then I can step through here, and if I'd like, I can put a watch on a value. Let's say add watch. Where is that here? And I can hit F10 to continue, and I can hit F5 to go to the end. All right, so that's simple debugging. But what if you want to debug this in the context of an app? Like, let's suppose I have an app that sets up an array of 10,000 values, and one of those values is triggering a bug. You probably need to debug it with the app, calling into the routine. You don't want to have to be, you can't type an array of 10,000 elements into some text box. You need it to be called by code. So that's what we call application debugging. And I have an application here. Let me open it up. Okay. And this C# application does a few things. It connects, then it sets up a call to determine primes, which, as you remember, is this routine here with the array. And then it sets a bind. It sends in the numbers 1 through 10 in a 10 element array, and then it executes it, and then it pulls out the output. All right, so let's make sure we have breakpoints here, and we have let me put a breakpoint over here in determine primes. All right, so now let's go ahead and turn on application debugging. Okay, I need to set something in the options here. Excuse me. Okay, I need to tell it. It has 2 different connections. It doesn't know where my code is, so I'm going to tell it that I'm using XCPDB1. All right, so you can see that it is now listening. The debugger is listening. And let's go ahead and start debugging. Okay, so now I'm at this breakpoint. The next thing that should happen is when I step next, I should pop out in the PLSQL code. Let's give that a try. There I am. So now I'm in the PLSQL code, and I can hit F10 and move through here. And I hit this breakpoint. And so let's see. Let me turn this breakpoint off. Hit F10 again. Hit F5. Okay, now we can watch the output values grow. I think I already have this watched, but we can add a watch here. So these are the inputs, 1 through 10. These are the outputs. Right now it only has one element. And then I can start hitting F5. One more time. I'm not hitting it. There we go. I've hit it a few times, and you can now see that the output is growing. And so now I'm going to turn off the breakpoint and just run to the end, and it should pop out on the other side. Okay, let's see. Debug. Continue. Okay. It's not doing what it's supposed to. Okay. Let's see. Let me put a breakpoint over here. Okay, let me turn that off. All right, hit F5 again. Okay, we're almost done. It should pop back out, and it does. So now we're on the C# side again, and you can see that the output variables on the C# side do indeed have the 10 elements that we returned. So this is really useful if you're debugging live code. And there's other things you can do too, like you could just call it from some other language from somewhere else and just use this as a listener only. That's called external application debugging. But needless to say, this is a really powerful feature that we expose in Visual Studio. Okay, I only have a little bit more time, so let's look at some of the other greatest hits of this product. So let's see. If you would like, you can add, let me open up Solution Explorer here. If you'd like, you can add a project called an Oracle project. So you type in Oracle and you'll see a couple different types. The newer one is Oracle Project version 2. And this particular project type has the ability to shred the database into a set of SQL scripts. So you just right click on the project and you say import schema. Takes a few seconds, and what you'll notice is that now I have under tables, I have a set of SQL scripts that are basically create statements. So I can take a look at them here. And then what can you do with this? Well, obviously you can check the whole thing into source control. You can create a Git repository and just put this whole thing in source control or use, so now it's been added to source control, as you can see, all these files. And the other thing you can do that's pretty cool is you can do a schema compare. So hopefully this will work, but I could say, let's see, I don't know, let's say change salary. Let's see, I don't want to trigger any, I don't want to hit any constraints here. Let me see if I can do this. I could just change this to first name 2, save it. And then what I'm getting at here is I can do a schema compare. And I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here. I actually don't know if this will work. But you can compare schema, the project, to the database, or you could compare it two databases against each other. But you can do a schema compare. And if we're lucky, which it looks like I'm going to be, you will notice that it's detected a difference in one of the tables. And that happens to be the employees table. And it says, well, first name 2 it only exists in the source, which was the scripts. So you can use schema compare. That's a pretty cool feature. And you can also use this to generate SQL scripts. There's other things you can do too that I'm running out of time, can't do, but we do have SQL Plus. You can run it. You can run SQL Plus scripts. And then we also have the ability to do ad hoc queries like you would expect. And you can even look at the explain plan and tune the SQL and everything else from here. So we have SQL tuning and performance analyzing and everything from here. So with that, let me come back to the slides. And I just will point out that I also did a blog on the ADB integration with Visual Studio. So if you get a chance to click on this link, if you see the slides, it'll take you to a blog I wrote that walks you through using Autonomous Database with Visual Studio. All right, and with that, I'll get a look at what the questions are. I will point out that here are some links for our .NET page, which does happen to have, even though Visual Studio Code is not specifically .NET, but it's just our team happens to handle it. We do have some videos and some examples, and you can follow us on Twitter, and you can even email me directly if you'd like. So let me take a look and see if there are any questions. And I'll bring on my camera again.
Is no questions through this platform. I'm just waiting to see if there's anything coming through by the Facebook one in a moment. In the meantime, thank you so much for another amazing presentation. Excellent contact. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for taking the time to present to the APAC and the global community to this event. If anyone is watching this event by the replays, please feel free to contact Christian by his contact information on the screen. You can see his YouTube, his GitHub, his email, his Twitter handle, and you can contact him directly and ask any questions, even if now you don't want to do that live and you want to do offline, please feel free to do that. And yep, looks like there's no more questions, Christian. That's everything. In that case, thank you again. And please have a wonderful night, evening, a nice weekend. And please, everyone, take care and be safe. Thank you so much, Christian.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, everyone. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye, Christian.
CloudDB, shaping your new normal.